In the middle of June 2026, inside the legendary Room 1844 at Buckingham Palace, a space usually reserved for the most powerful presidents and emperors, a quiet execution of the Sussex brand took place. King Charles III has used what many believe to be the final chapter of his reign to do what should have been done 6 years ago. He has officially severed his youngest son from the economic lifeblood of the British throne. This is the moment the Montecito fairy tale turned into a cold financial nightmare. As the powerful black cards of California suddenly go cold, the world is left asking one urgent question. Can Meghan Markle continue her performance as a noble victim, or is she about to face the raw reality of a woman bankrupt in both fortune and reputation? The doors have closed, the funding has evaporated, and the Sussexes are standing on the edge of total obscurity. Before we reveal the shocking details of this final decree, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the Royal Insider Network, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update on the House of Windsor. Tell us in the comments, do you think the king waited too long to cut off the funding? We want to hear your thoughts. The king sat alone in that historic room, his face etched with the weariness of his ongoing battle with illness, yet his eyes no longer held the hesitation of a grieving father. As he reviewed the balance sheets of the Duchy of Lancaster, his thoughts were reportedly dark and focused. He was heard murmuring to a senior aide that every single pound sent across the Atlantic was being forged into a blade used to strike at the Princess of Wales. For Charles, the internal conflict was over. He realized that continuing to fund the California lifestyle was no longer an act of fatherly love, but an act of betrayal against the very woman holding the future of the monarchy together, Catherine. In the high-stakes world of 2026, the line of succession is no longer just a list of names waiting for a crown. It has evolved into a brutal loyalty scanner. On paper, Harry remains in the sequence, but in the reality of the digital age, being number 6 or number 7 is a liability when your public approval rating has plummeted to -40%. At that depth, a royal title is no longer an asset or a mark of prestige. It is a target for media ridicule and a source of constant embarrassment for the institution. The Sussexes believed they could trade their lineage for Hollywood gold, but as the gates of the palace treasury slam shut, they are discovering that without the backing of the king, they are nothing more than a punchline for late-night talk shows. The countdown to their total collapse has officially begun, and the first domino has already fallen within the silent, prestigious walls of Room 1844. The era of the royal grifters is coming to a bitter, silent end. The atmosphere inside the dining room at Clarence House in April 2026 was thick with a tension that no amount of expensive wine could soften. This was the night of the infamous settlement dinner, a secret meeting that Harry believed would be his ultimate victory. He had flown back to London from California with a swagger that suggested he still held all the cards, carrying a proposal that was as bold as it was delusional. He wasn't there to apologize, he was there to demand a lump sum of $25 million. In Harry's mind, this was labeled as a lifetime security fund, an independent treasury that would allow him and Meghan to sustain their lifestyle and their struggling commercial brand without any oversight from the palace. A source close to the household recalls Harry's tone as being almost transactional. He reportedly looked his father in the eye and said, "This is the only way to ensure our silence and our safety. We cannot survive on the scraps of the institution while we build something greater." He truly believed that the king, weakened by personal health battles and a father's guilt, would simply sign the check to buy a peaceful reign. But Harry made a catastrophic error in judgment. He forgot that across the table sat the King of the United Kingdom, not just a father he could emotionally manipulate. As Harry laid out his demands, outlining how the $25 million would be used to prop up Meghan's failing media ventures, King Charles did not interrupt. He did not raise his voice. He simply listened, his expression unreadable. When Harry finished his pitch, the silence in the room was deafening. The king slowly reached for his crystal glass, took a final sip, and placed it down on the ancient oak table. The sharp, dry clink of the glass against the wood echoed through the room like a gavel. It was the sound of a financial guillotine falling. Without a single word of anger, Charles signaled that the negotiation was over. He wasn't just refusing the $25 million, he was about to reveal the trap he had quietly set. For years, the public had been led to believe that the Sussexes were financially independent, living off the millions they earned from streaming giants. The reality hidden deep within complex trust structures was far more humiliating. It is now understood that 75% of Harry's non-royal income, the money that actually paid for the security, the private jets and the Montecito staff, was still secretly dependent on family investment funds controlled by the king. Harry had been living on a tether he didn't even realize was still attached to the crown. The king's response was a new contract pushed across the table by a royal aide. It didn't offer $25 million. Instead, it systematically disconnected Harry from every single family trust. That 75% safety net was being slashed to 0% effective immediately. Charles was effectively saying that if Harry wanted to be truly independent, he would finally get exactly what he asked for. But it would come with the crushing weight of real-world bankruptcy. Harry walked out of that dinner, not as a victor, but as a man who had just realized the floor had been pulled out from under him. The Bank of Dad hadn't just closed its doors, it had demolished the entire building. As the Duke prepared to return to California to tell Meghan the news, the gravity of their situation began to sink in. They were now alone in the cutthroat world of Hollywood with no royal safety net and a burn rate of millions of dollars a month. One can only imagine the look on Meghan's face when she realized that the Trojan horse mission to London hadn't brought back a chest of gold, but a final cold goodbye. How long can a Hollywood empire last when the king himself has cut the power lines? While the California sun blazed outside the $14 million Montecito mansion, the temperature inside the house dropped to sub-zero. The moment of reckoning arrived via a single encrypted email from a London legal firm, a controlled palace communication that acted as a financial earthquake. Meghan Markle was reportedly seated at her expansive desk when the notification pinged. As she scrolled through the digital documents, the reality of King Charles's decision became visible in the most brutal way possible. The zeros were disappearing from their projected accounts in real time. It was the ultimate panic of a media parasite realizing the host had finally stopped the flow of blood. For years, the Sussexes had operated under the assumption that the royal tap could be loosened with enough public pressure or emotional leverage. Now, as the screens showed frozen assets and terminated trust distributions, that illusion shattered. Meghan didn't just see a lack of currency, she saw the total collapse of a carefully curated lifestyle. The numbers involved are staggering. When you are burning through $6 million a year just for a private security detail, when every flight must be a chartered private jet, and when you are paying top-tier PR firms hundreds of thousands of dollars a month just to keep your name in the headlines, zero is not just a number, it is a death sentence for your social standing. The Montecito estate, once a symbol of their freedom, suddenly felt like a gilded cage with an astronomical monthly maintenance fee. Insiders described the atmosphere as one of pure, unadulterated, hoovering panic. Every luxury they had used to thumb their noses at the traditionalist in London, the designer wardrobes, the celebrity-packed parties, the global tours, was now a liability in a massive financial black hole. In the middle of this storm stood Prince Harry, experiencing what staff described as a physical cold sweat panic. The man who had spent 36 years being protected by the most powerful institution in the world was suddenly truly alone. He was observed pacing the manicured lawns, his phone clutched in a white-knuckled grip. He was heard muttering a question to himself in a loop of desperation. How can I fix this if I can't even call my father? Why won't he just answer the phone? Harry's realization was far more visceral and haunting than Meghan's. While she focused on the brand, he was forced to confront the magnitude of his trade. He looked at his surroundings and saw the hollow reality of his new life. He realized he had traded 1,000 years of sacred history, the protection of a sovereign nation, and a brotherhood that spanned a lifetime, for a plastic cup of warm, cheap beer and a plate of leftover popcorn in the spectator stands of a minor polo match. He had traded the Koh-i-Noor diamond for a piece of polished glass, and now even the glass was breaking. The silence from London was the most agonizing part of the experience. There were no shouting matches, no tabloid leaks for them to respond to, and no opportunities for a televised tell-all to win back public sympathy. There was only the cold, clinical efficiency of the palace legal team and the finality of a closed bank account. As the reality of their bankruptcy, both financial and reputational, began to settle over the mansion, one has to wonder what the next move is for a couple who has nothing left to sell. The world is watching, not with the admiration they expected, but with a voyeuristic curiosity to see how the independent royals will survive when the crown finally stops paying the bills. Deep within the classified ledgers of the Privy Purse, a legal maneuver has been executed with the precision of a master chess player. It is known as the redirection clause, a powerful and rarely used mandate that governs the king's private estate. For decades, a significant portion of this wealth was earmarked for the younger son, a safety net intended to support the Duke of Sussex and his descendants. But as of July 2026, that fund has been surgically rerouted. In a move that signals a permanent shift in royal strategy, King Charles has redirected every penny of Harry's intended inheritance to the trust funds of Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. This is what palace insiders are calling future safeguarding. It is a concept that goes beyond mere financial planning. It is an institutional survival mechanism. The British monarchy does not operate on the emotions of tomorrow or the shifting winds of public opinion. It calculates in units of decades. When a fund is labeled for future safeguarding, it means the palace has activated its most robust defensive lockdown. This wealth is being converted into a closed-loop system of high-level security and elite education. The message is crystal clear. The institution is ensuring that the children of the future king will never be vulnerable to the fallout of the media scandals orchestrated by their aunt and uncle across the Atlantic. The legal reality of this redirection is a crushing blow to any hope of a Sussex comeback. By moving these assets into the names of the Wales children, the king has placed the money beyond the reach of any future reconciliation or legal challenge. It is no longer the king's money to give. It belongs to the next generation of working royals. This ensures that the financial power of the crown remains concentrated in the hands of those who are committed to its service, rather than those who seek to profit from its secrets. Standing at the center of this financial fortification is Prince William. His role in this process is defined by a cold, unwavering control. Those close to the Prince of Wales note that he did not accept this influx of wealth for his children out of greed or a desire for personal gain. Instead, he views it as a strategic necessity. William reportedly looks at these balance sheets with the calculating eye of a commander protecting his perimeter. He understands a brutal truth that Harry seems to have forgotten. Every pound sterling that is kept in London is one less pound available to fund a PR campaign or a tell-all project designed to undermine his wife Catherine. William's perspective has shifted from the personal to the tactical. He no longer sees this as a dispute between brothers, but as a defense of the state. He is aware that the Sussexes' primary weapon has always been their ability to purchase high-level media influence. By cutting off the source of that funding and redirecting it to the heirs, William is effectively disarming his brother. He has accepted the responsibility of being the enforcer of his father's will, ensuring that the resources intended for the monarchy stay within the monarchy. As the legal ink dries on the redirection clause, the magnitude of Harry's loss begins to take on a physical form. He hasn't just lost a paycheck, he has watched his birthright be handed over to his nephews and niece. The future safeguarding of the Wales children has become the financial exile of the Sussexes. In the quiet corridors of Kensington Palace, the move is seen as the ultimate shield, a way to ensure that while the storm in California continues to rage, the future of the British throne remains secure, well-funded, and entirely out of reach for those who walked away. The question now isn't what Harry will do next, but how much longer the Sussex brand can survive when its very inheritance has been used to build a wall against them. As the financial walls of the Montecito mansion close in desperation, has triggered a maneuver so cynical it has shocked even the most hardened palace courtiers. Trapped in a corner and facing a future without royal funding, Meghan Markle has reportedly pushed Harry to execute the most desperate move in their playbook, targeting the one person they spent years trying to tear down. This is the calculated attempt to bypass King Charles and Prince William by reaching out directly to Catherine, the Princess of Wales, during her sensitive period of recovery in 2026. The messages Harry has been sending are described by insiders as being drenched in a toxic mix of nostalgia and hypocrisy. He's reportedly using the cousins card, sending communications that read, "Catherine, you surely wouldn't want George, Charlotte, and Louis to grow up as complete strangers to Archie and Lilibet." It is a tactical emotional blackmail, a blatant attempt to use the bonds of family to force a door open that the King and Prince William have already locked and bolted. To understand the sheer audacity of this, one must step back and look at the history. This is the absolute delusion of the hunter who has spent years firing shots at a family home, burning the bridges behind him, and then once his own ammunition runs out, walks up to the scorched doorstep and asks the victim for shelter. Let us not forget that it was Meghan who sat on American television and allowed Catherine to be painted as a villain to a global audience. For years, the Sussexes built their entire commercial identity on the idea that Catherine and the institution were cold, unwelcoming, and out of touch. Now, when the bank accounts are flashing red and the A-list invitations have dried up, they expect the very woman they slandered to act as their sacrificial mediator. But the Sussexes have made a fatal error in their calculations. They are still trying to manipulate the Catherine of 2018, the soft-spoken peacemaker, the woman who tried to smooth over the cracks for the sake of family harmony. But the Catherine of 2026 is a different person entirely. Having walked through the grueling fire of a major health battle and emerged on the other side, she has attained a level of clarity that the Sussexes simply cannot comprehend. She no longer views Harry as a wayward brother. She sees Brand Sussex as a persistent threat that must be permanently quarantined to protect the future of the monarchy. The response from the Princess of Wales to Harry's frantic outreach hasn't been a letter of rejection or an angry phone call. It has been a wall of absolute impenetrable silence. This is not the silence of a woman who is suffering or being suppressed. It is the silence of a gatekeeper who has reached a final irreversible verdict. Catherine has realized that the greatest punishment she can inflict on a couple who thrives on media drama and tell-all narratives is to deny them the one thing they need to survive: engagement. She is purging them from the royal story, not through conflict, but through the power of oblivion. As Harry waits by his phone in California, checking for a sign that his sister-in-law will crack the palace's icy resolve, he's met with nothing but a void. Every ignored text and every unanswered letter is a reminder that his influence has evaporated. He's realizing too late that when you attack the future queen, you aren't just attacking a person, you're attacking the very heart of the kingdom. Catherine's silence is her most powerful weapon, a signal to the world that the Sussexes are no longer part of the equation. What happens to a media brand built on royal proximity when the most beloved member of that family decides you no longer exist? The morning of July the 16th, 2026, began with a media thunderclap that echoed from the newsstands of London to the digital screens of New York. Major broadcasters and the Daily Mail simultaneously broke the story that the British monarchy had finally performed its most decisive financial surgery. The headline was simple, brutal, and historic: Sussex Trust redirected to Wales children. This was the public confirmation that the safety net under Harry and Meghan had been permanently removed and woven into a shield for the next generation of working royals. The reaction across the United Kingdom was instantaneous and electric. In the streets of London and the digital forums of the Commonwealth, supporters of the Prince and Princess of Wales broke into a chorus of approval. For those who had watched years of attacks on the monarchy with growing frustration, this was more than a financial update. It was a long-awaited act of justice. Even the most vocal critics of the traditional system found themselves strangely satisfied, seeing a clear message that royal wealth would no longer be used to fund a lifestyle of public grievances. The sentiment was clear. The money that was once meant for the spare was finally going to the children who were being raised to serve, not to sell. This moment marked the symbolic death of an icon, the Sussex brand, as a royal-adjacent entity. For years, Harry and Meghan had marketed themselves as Royalty 2.0, a modern alternative to the ancient institution. But as the ink dried on the redirection clause, the world realized that you cannot be a royal icon without the backing of the crown. The inner workings of this decision reveal a haunting transition of power. King Charles III reportedly signed the financial judgment with a trembling hand, the weight of a father's grief heavy in the room. But while the signature was the king's, the execution was fueled by the iron will of the man who will one day be King William V. William has made it his mission to ensure that the monarchy he inherits is not a source of profit for those who seek to undermine it. He was heard telling a senior advisor that the cycle of betrayal had to be broken by a wall of absolute consequence. Harry had spent years demanding freedom from what he called the royal cage. In 2026, William finally gave him exactly what he asked for: an absolute, chilling freedom. It is a freedom in total estrangement, a life completely disconnected from the power and the protection of the 1,000-year-old institution. Harry is left with a title, but it is a hollow vessel with no currency behind it. In the high-stakes world of international influence, a duke without a royal allowance and without palace access is just another celebrity in a town full of fading stars. As the night falls over the Montecito mansion, the silence is heavier than ever before. The spare is left to pace his halls, staring at bank accounts that are no longer being replenished by a father's love or an institution's obligation. He is realizing the bitter truth of his rebellion. He didn't just walk away from a job. He walked away from his only source of true relevance. He can pick up the phone 1,000 times. He can send 1,000 desperate messages, but in the halls of Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace, no one is picking up. The line is dead. Thank you for following this deep dive on the Royal Insider Network. The Sussex era has reached its sunset, and the reign of the Wales family is being fortified for the decades to come. If you want to stay informed on every development within the House of Windsor, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We want to hear from you. Is this the end of the road for Harry and Meghan, or is there one last move left? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We value your perspective. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in our next exclusive report.
The shadow of the late Queen Elizabeth II has just reached out from the pages of history to deliver a final, devastating blow to the current power structure of the British monarchy. Buckingham Palace has officially confirmed the activation of a highly classified legal archive, a file that was intended to remain sealed for 50 years, but has now been triggered by a specific set of constitutional circumstances. This is not just a paperwork update, it is a calculated checkmate from the grave, designed to strip Queen Camilla of her hidden historical influence within the Windsor family. If you are as fascinated by these high-stakes royal power plays as we are, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the Royal Insider Network. Your support allows us to continue bringing you the deepest secrets from behind the palace walls. Once you have subscribed, leave a comment below with the word justice, so we know you are part of our community. The scene of this historic confrontation was the West Library at Windsor Castle. It was exactly 10 o'clock in the morning on June 15, 2026. The air inside the room was thick with the scent of ancient parchment and an almost unbearable level of tension. King Charles sat at the head of a long mahogany table, his hands gripped so tightly together that his knuckles were starkly white. His eyes were fixed on an ornate oak box, sitting in the center of the table, a box containing the legendary Elizabeth Protocol. Opposite the king sat Queen Camilla. She was attempting to maintain her signature diplomatic smile, but the reality of the situation was visible in her hands. She gripped an antique wooden fan so fiercely that the wood could be heard creaking under the pressure. The silence was finally broken by the sound of heavy doors opening as Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, entered the room. She was accompanied by two senior partners from the prestigious law firm Farrar and Company, the men tasked with executing the late Queen's final wishes. According to those present, the atmosphere shifted the moment the lawyers began to speak. Sophie reportedly looked at her brother-in-law and said in a firm, steady voice that the time for delay had passed and that the requirements of the late Queen's will were now absolute. She stated that the protocol was designed to protect the institution, even from those within it. King Charles was heard responding in a low, strained voice, admitting that he had spent years dreading this specific day, knowing that his mother's foresight would eventually collide with his own personal desires. As the seals on the oak box were broken, the full weight of the situation became clear. This document was not just a suggestion, it was a legal firewall. It was a set of instructions designed to ensure that the historical and financial legacy of the family would bypass Queen Camilla and move directly toward the next generation. The creaking of Camilla's fan grew louder as the lawyers began to read the terms that would redefine her role forever. The Game of Thrones has entered its most dangerous phase yet, and the winner may have already been decided from beyond the veil of time. Stay tuned as we uncover exactly what this 50-year secret means for the future of the crown. The heavy silence of the West Library was broken by the clinical, rhythmic voice of the senior counsel from Farrar and Company. As the seals were officially recorded, the lawyers revealed the core of the Elizabeth Protocol, a specific and ironclad legal chapter that designated Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, as the sole literary executor of the late Queen's entire collection of private diaries and personal correspondence. This was not a shared responsibility. It was an exclusive mandate that placed the most intimate secrets of the House of Windsor behind a wall that even the King himself could not scale. To understand the gravity of this move, one must look back to a precedent set in the year 1861. History was repeating itself in a way that left the modern courtiers breathless. In 1861, Queen Victoria had established a nearly identical provision in her will, entrusting her private papers to her youngest daughter, Princess Beatrice. Victoria's goal had been to ensure that her son and heir, the future King Edward VII, could not sanitize or destroy the parts of her history that he found inconvenient or scandalous. By invoking this century-old tactic, Queen Elizabeth II was signaling to her son, Charles, that she did not trust the official historians or the current senior royals to preserve the unvarnished truth of her long reign. The legal ambush went even deeper, revealing a sophisticated financial structure that had been operating in the shadows for years. The lawyers presented evidence of an independent financial fund totaling £12 million, approximately $15 million, which had been carved out of the private assets of the Duchy of Lancaster. This massive sum had been quietly transferred to Sophie's management in November 2021, exactly 7 months after the death of Prince Philip. This timing was not accidental. In her grief and isolation, the late Queen had spent those months meticulously constructing a financial fortress to ensure that Sophie would have the resources to protect the royal archives without ever having to ask the Treasury or the King for a single penny. King Charles sat in a state of profound, visible shock as the details were read aloud. Those in the room observed him staring at the legal documents, as if they were a foreign language he was desperately trying to translate. He was reportedly heard whispering to himself, "She was planning this while we were mourning." The realization hit him with a cold, staggering weight. His mother had been working in her profound loneliness to create a plan that essentially bypassed him. He felt a sense of invisible but absolute rejection. The most agonizing part for the king was the realization that his new sovereign powers were useless in this arena. Because the late Queen had structured this as a private civil property matter rather than a constitutional one, Charles could not use his authority as monarch to intervene. He was the King of the United Kingdom, the head of the Commonwealth, and the commander of the armed forces. Yet he was legally powerless to reclaim the private thoughts and financial secrets of his own mother. As the lawyers continued to detail Sophie's new powers, the shift in the room was undeniable. The Duchess of Edinburgh was no longer just a supporting member of the firm. She had been elevated to the most powerful guardian in royal history. Charles looked across at Sophie, searching for a sign of hesitation, but found only a quiet, resolute loyalty to the woman who had trusted her above everyone else. The question that now haunted the king was simple. What exactly was hidden in those diaries that his mother felt he, and specifically Camilla, could never be allowed to see? The shadow of 1861 had fallen over Windsor, and the secrets of the past were now armed with a $15 million war chest. The 13 years spanning from 1992 to 2005 represent the most volatile and potentially damaging era in the history of the modern House of Windsor. This was the era of the annus horribilis, the global shock of the 1996 royal divorce, the tragic loss of Princess Diana, and the long, controversial campaign to introduce Camilla to the British public. Now, within the silent walls of the West Library, Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, has officially activated what the legal documents call Security Level 1. This is a total quarantine of every diary entry, every private memo, and every recorded phone call from that specific 13-year window. By invoking this level of protection, Sophie has effectively created a historical black hole. For Queen Camilla, this is not just a legal technicality, it is the ultimate weaponization of the past. It means that the definitive record of her arrival into the heart of the monarchy, the private thoughts of the late Queen during those explosive years, is now entirely out of her reach. The atmosphere in the room shattered when Camilla finally broke her silence. Her voice was reportedly raspy, stripped of its usual polished warmth, as she interrupted the lead attorney. Those present describe her leaning forward, her eyes locked on the legal team, as she demanded to know if the Privy Council had been made aware of this unprecedented restriction. She was essentially asking if the highest constitutional body in the United Kingdom had authorized this move to hide royal history from the sitting Queen and King. The response she received was a masterclass in legal coldness. The senior counsel from Farrer and Company did not even look up from the leather-bound ledger in front of him. He simply adjusted his glasses and replied with a finality that seemed to vibrate through the oak table. He told the Queen that this was the private testament of the late sovereign. He emphasized that in the eyes of the British legal system, a monarch's private papers are protected 100% by civil privacy statutes. He concluded by stating that the Privy Council has no jurisdiction over the personal property of the deceased, meaning the lockdown was absolute and legally unassailable. As the lawyer's words hung in the air, Camilla's reaction was one of visible, visceral realization. She was seen repeatedly and forcefully rubbing the silk fabric of her skirt between her thumb and forefinger, a nervous gesture that betrayed the panic beneath her diplomatic mask. The Elizabeth Protocol had done more than just hide documents. It had effectively put Camilla's entire history into a box and handed the key to Sophie. Camilla understands better than anyone what those archives contain. She knows that between 1992 and 2005, the late Queen's private assessments of her were likely far from the dear daughter-in-law narrative that has been projected in recent years. By sealing these years under Security Level 1, the late Queen has ensured that Camilla can never edit her own history. The woman who spent decades working to rebuild her image now faces the reality that the most honest account of her past is being guarded by a woman who is fiercely loyal to the late Queen's original vision. The power dynamic in the room had shifted irrevocably. The King sat in silence, watching as his wife realized that her past was now a liability controlled by someone else. The 13 years that defined Camilla's life have been turned into a ghost that will haunt her for as long as those archives remain sealed. The question is no longer what the public knows, but what Sophie knows, and what the late Queen told her to do with that knowledge if the stability of the crown is ever threatened. The atmosphere in the West Library shifted from a legal debate to a cold administrative execution. A senior royal secretary, acting under the direct instructions of the executors, stepped forward and placed a single sheet of heavy vellum directly in front of Queen Camilla. This was the Administrative Isolation Clause, a document designed to strip away the intangible power she had spent decades accumulating. It was not a request for a meeting. It was a formal notification of a new reality that redefined the very hierarchy of the palace. The document contained a specific recurring phrase that acted like a physical blow to the Queen's dignity. It categorized her, and anyone else in a similar position, under the clinical term, members joined by marriage. According to the new protocols established by the late Queen, these individuals were now strictly prohibited from entering the third floor of the Round Tower at Windsor Castle. This specific location is the heart of the Royal Archives, the vault where the most sensitive diaries and private letters are stored. The mandate stated that no member joined by marriage, regardless of their current title, could cross that threshold without a physical security pass, signed and authorized exclusively by the Duchess of Edinburgh. Camilla sat frozen, her eyes locked onto those 4 words. Members joined by marriage. To the world, she was the Queen Consort, the woman crowned at Westminster Abbey, yet in this room, she was being legally reminded that she was an outsider to the bloodline. This clause effectively nullified the weight of her crown in the one area where it mattered most, the control of the family's historical narrative. She realized that her status as the king's wife gave her no authority over the king's mother's secrets. The silence was broken only by the sound of the wind rattling the ancient window frames. Desperate for a lifeline, Camilla turned her gaze toward King Charles. She was searching for the protective husband, the man who had fought the entire establishment to make her his queen. She looked at him with an expression that pleaded for intervention, for a royal decree to overrule this bureaucratic insult. But the king did not meet her eyes. In a moment of profound symbolic abandonment, Charles slowly turned his head away. He chose instead to stare out the window, watching the fading afternoon sunlight descend over the Windsor estate. His hands remained still, offering no comfort and no resistance. Insiders describe this as the moment Charles finally accepted that his role as the protector of the institution outweighed his role as a husband. He knew that to fight this mandate would be to fight the final, sacred will of his mother, a battle he knew he could not win. In the corner of the room, Prince William remained perfectly still, his posture as rigid as a palace guard. He maintained a flawless poker face, showing no outward emotion as his stepmother faced this public demotion. However, those close to the Prince of Wales noted the sharp, piercing quality of his gaze. While he remained silent, his eyes betrayed a cold, calculating approval of the entire proceeding. To William, this was not about cruelty. It was about the cold logic of succession. He saw this as the ultimate victory for his grandmother's vision, a way to ensure that the secrets of his mother, the late Princess Diana, and the internal struggles of the bloodline remained guarded by those born to the crown, not those who married into it. As the secretary stood waiting for the Queen's acknowledgement, the power shift in the room was absolute. The Round Tower was now a fortress, and the keys were held by Sophie. Camilla was forced to confront the reality that she was a queen with a crown, but no access to the truth. One has to wonder, as she stared at that piece of paper, what secret lies hidden on the third floor of the Round Tower that the late Queen was so desperate to keep from her daughter-in-law's eyes. The walls of Windsor have never felt higher, and the isolation of the member by marriage has only just begun. The legal team from Farrar and Company had barely exited the West Library before the heavy silence of the room was shattered by a single, sharp sound. King Charles pushed his chair back with such force that the heavy oak legs screeched against the polished floorboards, a sound that echoed through the high ceilings like a cry of frustration. He stood up, his frame silhouetted against the waning afternoon light of June 15, 2026. He looked at his sister-in-law, Sophie, with an expression that was a mix of betrayal and profound confusion. He was heard asking her, in a voice strained by the gravity of the hour, why it had to be her. "Why you, Sophie?" he demanded, as if searching for a reason why his mother had chosen a daughter-in-law over her own son and sovereign. Sophie did not flinch. She did not retreat behind the royal protocol that usually dictated her every move. She stood perfectly straight, her hands clasped calmly in front of her, the very image of the safe pair of hands the late Queen had so admired. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was described as being as soft as velvet, but as cold as steel. She looked the king directly in the eye and told him, "Your Majesty, I did not ask for this power. I did not seek this responsibility. I am simply keeping a promise I made to a mother on her deathbed." With those words, the true nature of the Elizabeth Protocol was laid bare. This was not a political maneuver. It was a sacred, final wish. Sophie was making it clear that her loyalty was not to the current king, but to the late Queen who had entrusted her with the most sensitive legacy of the bloodline. Charles stood frozen, the realization hitting him that this was a pact made in the final hours of a 96-year life. A pact designed to safeguard the crown's integrity, even from those who currently wore it. The tension in the room reached a breaking point when Queen Camilla rose from her seat. She did not raise her voice. Instead, she crossed the room with a deliberate, slow pace until she was standing only centimeters away from Sophie. The two women, both joined to the royal family by marriage, stood face to face. Camilla did not display anger. Instead, she leaned in close and spoke in a low, bitter whisper that was heard by those remaining in the library. She told Sophie, "You have won, Sophie. You have your keys and your archives. But never forget who it was that sat beside the king at Westminster Abbey." It was a final, desperate attempt to reassert her status as the crowned queen, a reminder that while Sophie held the papers, Camilla held the title. She was essentially telling Sophie that no matter what secrets were hidden in the Round Tower, the world saw Camilla as the woman on the throne. It was a play for dominance based on public image versus private truth. Sophie's response was a masterclass in royal subtlety. She did not argue. She did not defend her position. Instead, she slowly lowered her head into a deep, perfectly executed royal curtsy. It was the standard mark of respect for a queen, but in that moment, it felt like a definitive victory. By performing the gesture, Sophie was acknowledging Camilla's title, while simultaneously signaling that she, Sophie, was the one moving forward with the late Queen's ultimate blessing. It was a bow that said, "You may have the crown, but I have the truth." As the clock on the mantel struck 4 in the afternoon, the 3 most powerful figures in the room stood in a triangular stalemate. The lawyers were gone, the documents were signed, and the Elizabeth Protocol was now the law of the house. The king, the queen, and the keeper of the secrets were left in the gathering shadows of Windsor, each realizing that the monarchy had been fundamentally changed by a woman who was no longer there to see it. One has to wonder, as they stood beneath the shadow of the Round Tower, what the first secret Sophie will uncover as she turns the key to the late Queen's most private thoughts. The morning of June 16, 2026, brought with it a cold, industrial reality that signaled the official start of a new era at Windsor Castle. While the public was focused on the routine of changing the guard, a far more significant transformation was occurring behind the heavy stone walls of the Round Tower. Technical teams, operating under direct orders from the legal executors of the late Queen's estate, began the process of replacing every electronic and manual lock leading to the historical archives. For Queen Camilla, the erasure was swift and clinical. By mid-morning, her name had been officially removed from the internal list of individuals authorized to review or approve royal historical manuscripts. This was a position of soft power she had held with pride, allowing her to influence how the story of the monarchy and her place within it was told to future generations. Now, that authority has been completely vaporized. Palace insiders report that the digital clearance codes assigned to the Queen's office were deactivated at precisely 9 o'clock, leaving her staff unable to access the very documents they had managed for years. As the physical barriers were being reinforced, the media landscape began to shift. Leaks, carefully timed and strategically placed, started appearing in the most influential London newsrooms. The narrative of the royal family was being rewritten in real time. Headlines began to whisper about a silent duchess who had been handpicked by the late Queen to serve as the ultimate guardian of the throne's destiny. The public began to realize that while Camilla wore the crown and stood on the balcony, it was Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, who held the keys to the truth. The long-term consequences of the Elizabeth Protocol are now becoming clear to everyone within the palace firm. The balance of power has been fundamentally recalibrated. Sophie is no longer viewed merely as a hard-working royal. She has become the most formidable gatekeeper in the history of the House of Windsor. She possesses the one thing that no amount of royal jewelry or public ceremony can provide: the absolute, unshakable trust of the longest reigning monarch in British history. The final image of this historic week is one that will likely haunt Queen Camilla for the rest of her reign. As the afternoon sun hit the limestone of the Round Tower, Sophie was seen crossing the courtyard. In her hand, she held a small, unassuming bronze key, the physical symbol of her new domain. She climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, moving into a sun-drenched archive room that was now hers, and hers alone to manage. At the same time, Queen Camilla was observed standing on a high balcony of the private apartments, looking down at the tower. The expression on her face was described as one of profound, quiet realization. She stood there, the Queen of the United Kingdom, wearing the symbols of the highest office in the land. Yet she was an outsider to the very room Sophie was now entering. In that moment, the ultimate lesson of the Elizabeth Protocol was delivered. A crown can buy fame, it can buy a seat at the head of the table, and it can buy a place in the history books. Nung's supreme trust, the kind that survives the grave, cannot be bought with a title. It must be earned over decades of silence, loyalty, and sacrifice. As the sun set over Windsor, the new order was firmly in place. The secrets are locked away, the guardian is at her post, and the king's wife must learn to live in a palace where the most important doors are now forever closed to her. Thank you for joining us for this extraordinary investigation on the Royal Insider Network. The secrets of the Elizabeth Protocol are only just beginning to surface, and we will be here to bring you every development. If you found this series insightful, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to stay at the heart of the royal story. We want to hear from you. Do you believe the late Queen was right to trust Sophie over her own son and his wife? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for our next exclusive report.
So often I have said, wouldn't you want to be in the room when these crazy decisions, these mad and bonkers PR decisions by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are being made?
Buckingham Palace has just completed a ruthless digital purge, a cold and calculated move that officially erases the last remnants of royal glory for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. At precisely 10:15 in the morning on March 18, 2024, the official royal website underwent a brutal transformation. Without a single public statement or warning, the detailed profiles of Harry and Meghan were stripped down, downgraded, and essentially buried at the bottom of the page. This wasn't just a technical update, it was a digital execution. The palace has effectively stripped away their legitimacy, proving that the Sussex mask no longer holds any power in the eyes of the monarchy. This surgical strike happened at the most sensitive moment possible. Just as Harry and Meghan were preparing their private jets for a return flight to the United Kingdom, hoping to spin a media narrative of a triumphant homecoming, the palace pulled the rug out from under them. While they were busy drafting press releases about their grand return, the Crown was busy hitting the delete button. If you believe the palace should have done this sooner, hit the like button right now and subscribe to the Royal Insider Network for the latest updates on this royal fallout. The consequences of this digital exile are devastating for Meghan's brand. Without the official royal seal of approval, her new venture, as ever, has been cut off at the roots. To the elite world, she is no longer a representative of the British Crown. She is just another celebrity trying to sell lifestyle goods. The financial impact is already visible. Harry's speaking fees, which once soared at a staggering $1 million per event, have plummeted to a humiliating $50,000. Organizers are no longer interested in a prince who has been digitally evicted by his own father. Inside their Montecito mansion, the atmosphere is reportedly one of pure chaos. Sources close to the couple say Meghan has fallen into a state of strategic panic. She was heard shouting at her branding team, demanding to know how they could protect the brand if the Duchess title lost its weight. She reportedly told her advisors that without the royal connection, she isn't an elite entrepreneur. She's just someone selling runny, disgusting sauce that the public is already mocking. She knows that without those three words, Duchess of Sussex, her jars of jam and candles are just dust-collecting relics. Meanwhile, Harry is reportedly in a state of blind rage. He realized the moment he saw the website changes that the palace no longer considers him a relevant member of the family. He told a close associate that it felt like being erased from history while he was still alive. This wasn't just a demotion, it was a clear message that they are outsiders now. Even their massive deal with Netflix is reportedly on life support. Thousands of Meghan's products, from strawberry jams to luxury candles, are reportedly sitting in Netflix warehouses, covered in dust, after the streaming giant quietly began distancing itself from the couple. What do you think about the palace's decision to finally wipe the Sussexes from the digital record? Was it a necessary move or too harsh? Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to the Royal Insider Network to stay ahead of every royal scandal. The golden era of the Sussexes is over, and the truth is finally being laid bare. While the public media often paints a picture of a heartbroken father struggling with a rebellious son, the reality behind the stone walls of the palace is far more clinical and decisive. King Charles III, and the Prince of Wales, William, have formed what insiders are calling a Steel Alliance. They are no longer acting as separate family members. They are a unified front, standing against the chaos emanating from California. High-level sources confirm that a ruthless secret agreement has been reached between the king and his heir. They have reportedly pledged to stop taking all personal calls from Montecito and have made a solemn commitment to never, under any circumstances, be left alone in a room with Harry again. Every future interaction must be witnessed, documented, and controlled. This new strategy of total containment was put to the ultimate test during Harry's recent, hurried trip to London. The narrative pushed by the Sussex camp was one of a son rushing to his father's side in a time of need, but the clock tells a very different story. Harry flew thousands of miles across the Atlantic, reportedly expecting a significant 45-minute audience with the king to negotiate his standing and perhaps discuss a return to the fold. Instead, he was treated like an outsider. He was forced to wait, and when the doors finally opened, the meeting lasted exactly 12 minutes. 12 minutes is not a consultation, it is a dismissal. Harry reportedly entered the room with a prepared script, hoping to use his father's health as a leverage point for his own security demands. But the king's response was cold and brief. Sources close to the king say he looked at his son and essentially told him that his time was up before the conversation could even begin. Harry was ushered out of the room with a speed that left him stunned. He was heard muttering to an aide that he had travelled over 5,000 miles for a meeting that was shorter than a commercial break. The humiliation continued the moment he stepped outside. In a move that signalled his total loss of status, the palace stripped him of his high-level police escort. There were no blue lights, no sirens, and no special clearance through the dense London traffic. For the first time in his life, Harry was just another person stuck in the gridlock of the city. This lack of security protocol actually caused him to be late for his next appointment, a stinging reminder that in the eyes of the crown, he is no longer a VIP. King Charles, despite his ongoing health battles, is demonstrating the cold, calculated mindset of a chief executive officer managing a 1,000-year-old corporation. He has realized that his primary duty is to the institution, not to a son who has repeatedly sold family secrets for profit. He has turned silence into a lethal weapon, starving Harry of the media oxygen he needs to stay relevant. Harry is reportedly trapped in a cycle of bitterness and shame. He told a confidant that he felt like a stranger in his own home, realizing too late that his father is not the weak, easily manipulated man he thought he could control. He walked into that 12-minute meeting, expecting to be a power player, but he walked out realizing he had been completely outmaneuvered. The question now is not if Harry will return to the royal circle, but how much longer he can survive in a digital and physical exile that is becoming more permanent with every passing hour. Something shifted in those 12 minutes, and the consequences are only just beginning to surface. The deception began in September 2025, a moment that was supposed to be Harry's grand redemption on British soil. He landed in London with a meticulously crafted media plan, designed to paint him as the true heir to his mother's humanitarian heart. The headline that dominated every news cycle was staggering. Prince Harry had personally donated £1 million to the BBC Children in Need charity. For a few days, the world was captivated. It seemed as though the prodigal son had returned, setting aside his grievances to help the most vulnerable children in the United Kingdom. But beneath the polished press releases, a dark financial secret was waiting to be uncovered. The narrative of the selfless prince began to crumble when an independent investigative journalist started asking the questions the mainstream media were too afraid to touch. They sent a series of direct inquiries to the BBC, demanding to see the transaction records for this historic donation. Under the pressure of professional scrutiny, the national broadcaster was forced to admit a truth that sent shockwaves through the palace. The £1 million did not come from Harry's personal earnings or his Netflix millions. Every single penny had been pulled from the Glenbeg Trust. For those unfamiliar with the inner workings of royal finances, The Glenbeg Trust is the independent body that manages the inheritance left behind by the late Princess Diana for her sons. Harry and Meghan hadn't made a sacrifice at all. They had simply dipped into the bank account of a deceased mother to buy themselves a PR victory. They took the credit, they took the applause, and they took the headlines, all while using a dead woman's legacy as a financial shield. The emotional weight of this revelation is devastating. Insiders report that when the news hit the palace, the reaction was one of profound disgust. It was seen as a calculated move to weaponize Diana's soul for the sake of a failing brand. Meghan was reportedly the mastermind behind the optics, telling their team that they needed a quote-unquote Diana moment to silence their critics. She allegedly insisted that the donation be framed as a personal gift from Harry, knowing full well that the public would never suspect he was using inheritance money rather than his own hard-earned cash. This level of meticulous cruelty reveals a desperate reality for the Sussexes. By late 2025, their private bank accounts were reportedly under immense strain. With the collapse of several high-profile deals and the staggering costs of their security and lifestyle in California, the couple needed a way to stay relevant without spending their own dwindling resources. Harry was heard in a heated discussion with his financial advisors, reportedly saying that the money was his anyway, so why shouldn't he use it to fix his image? He couldn't see the difference between a genuine act of charity and a hollow marketing stunt. The most disturbing part of the scandal was the role of the BBC. Documents suggest the broadcaster was fully aware of the source of the funds, but initially agreed to play along with the personal donation narrative to protect the prince's reputation. They provided the cover he needed to deceive the public. Now, the mask has been ripped away, leaving Harry and Meghan exposed as figures who are willing to exhaust every drop of Diana's legacy just to stay in the spotlight. As the true nature of their finances becomes public, one has to wonder, what happens when the inheritance finally runs dry, and there is nothing left of Diana's shadow to hide behind? The world is starting to see the real cost of their Hollywood lifestyle, and the price is far higher than anyone imagined. By July 2026, the walls had completely closed in on the Sussexes. With their digital presence erased from the official royal website and their financial foundation crumbling under the weight of failed deals and a tarnished reputation, Harry and Meghan were left with only one remaining asset: their children. In a move that insiders are calling the ultimate Trojan horse strategy, the couple has reportedly finalized a plan to bring Archie and Lilibet back to United Kingdom soil for the first time in years. Officially, the visit is framed around the Invictus Games in Birmingham, but the true objective is far more calculated. This is an emotional siege designed to force the doors of Buckingham Palace open by using two innocent children as the ultimate bargaining chips. The timing of this move is surgically precise. King Charles has not seen his grandchildren in over 4 years, a painful gap that has only been widened by his ongoing battle with cancer. Meghan is acutely aware of the power she holds in this dynamic. She understands that the British public, no matter how much they might resent her or Harry, will never boo a mother holding the hands of 2 small children. By placing Archie and Lilibet in the direct line of the media's cameras, she is effectively creating a human shield. It is a high-stakes gamble to silence the critics and prevent the very public rejection they faced during their last visits. If they can get a photo of the king hugging his grandchildren, the Sussex brand is instantly recharged with the royal prestige they so desperately need to survive. Behind the scenes, the atmosphere in their Montecito mansion is reportedly chilling. Meghan is said to be approaching this trip with the cold, bloodless efficiency of a corporate strategist. To her, the children are no longer just her son and daughter. They are powerful tools for brand recovery. She has been overheard discussing the visual impact of the children's clothing and how their presence will soften the narrative around their recent scandals. For Meghan, this is the last chance to save her lifestyle brand. She knows that without the royal connection, her jars of jam and lifestyle products will never reach the elite market she craves. She is willing to use any means necessary to secure that connection, even if it means putting her children at the center of a global media firestorm. Harry, however, is reportedly a man on the edge. While Meghan views this as a brilliant PR maneuver, Harry is said to be trembling with anxiety and internal conflict. He knows the history of the British press better than anyone, and he understands the danger of turning his children into pawns on a media chessboard. Sources close to the prince say he is terrified of the backlash if this strategy fails. He watches his wife prepare for this invasion of London and realizes that his children are being used as foot soldiers to save a business that is already gasping for air. The tension between his loyalty to his wife's ambitions and his instinct to protect his children has reached a breaking point. This isn't just a family visit, it's an emotional kidnapping. The palace is now faced with an impossible choice. Do they bar the door and risk being seen as heartless toward two innocent children and a sick grandfather, or do they let the Trojan horse inside and risk another wave of leaks and exploitation? As July 2026 approaches, the world is watching to see if the crown will blink first. The Sussexes have played their final, most dangerous card, and the true cost of this digital and physical war is about to be revealed in the most public way possible. The question remains, can a family ever truly recover once the children are used as weapons of war? The countdown to Birmingham has begun, and the silence from the palace is deafening. As the Sussexes prepare their high-stakes return in July 2026, they are heading directly toward an impenetrable bunker. The Trojan horse strategy of using their children to gain access to the palace is about to collide with a force far more rigid than they anticipated. The Prince and Princess of Wales. William and Catherine have reportedly made their position crystal clear to the King and the household staff. There is 0% chance of forgiveness, and there will be 0% chance of a private audience. The bridge hasn't just been burned, the very foundations have been removed. The Windsor firewall is a direct response to the years of calculated betrayals, specifically the deeply personal attacks launched in Harry's memoir, Spare. For William, the line was crossed the moment Harry targeted Catherine's private life and character for global consumption. Insiders say William no longer views Harry as a younger brother or even a family member. He views him as a professional threat, a security risk, and a traitor who is willing to sell his own family's secrets to the highest bidder. This isn't a family feud anymore. It is a tactical isolation. To ensure there is no possibility of a staged encounter for the cameras, William has orchestrated a logistical blackout. During the exact days Harry and Meghan are scheduled to be in the country for the Invictus events, William and Catherine have planned a series of engagements that will keep them hundreds of miles away. They have no intention of being in the same zip code, let alone the same room. William has reportedly told his aides that he will not allow his family to be used as props in a Sussex PR campaign ever again. But the most devastating blow comes from the palace's legal and security teams. They have issued an absolute, non-negotiable ban on any filming or recording by private crews on royal property. This move is a surgical strike against the Sussexes' primary source of income. It is well known that American streaming giants are only interested in behind-the-scenes footage of royal life. By banning film crews from even stepping onto the grounds of Windsor or any other royal estate, the palace has effectively cut off the commercial oxygen the couple needs. Without footage of the children with the king or a walkabout near the palace, their media value drops to zero. Inside the Sussex camp, the realization is starting to sink in. Harry is reportedly experiencing a profound sense of humiliation. He is being treated like a dangerous stranger in the very place where he was born and raised. Sources say he is stunned that his brother has completely cut him out of the loop, refusing to even acknowledge his existence through official channels. He expected a confrontation, a fight, or even an argument, something he could use for a future chapter or a documentary. Instead, he is being met with a wall of cold, professional silence. Meghan's reaction is said to be one of calculated frustration. She understands that the Windsor firewall makes her brand look powerless. If she cannot get past William and Catherine, she cannot claim to be part of the inner circle. the silence from the Waleses is more damaging than any public statement could ever be. It sends a message to the world's elite that the Sussexes are truly on the outside, with no way back in. As the date of their arrival draws closer, the tension within the palace walls is at an all-time high. The world is left wondering, what happens when the most famous exiles in the world realize they are no longer even a threat, but simply an irrelevance? The endgame is approaching, and the Waleses are not moving an inch. The final verdict on this royal saga has been delivered by the most feared biographer in the United Kingdom, Tom Bower. His conclusion is as cold as it is precise. The Sussex story has reached a state of utter desperation and failure. For years, Harry and Meghan survived on the high-octane fuel of controversy and victimhood. But as we move toward the late 2020s, that engine has finally stalled. They haven't just run out of money, they have run out of stories. The global public, particularly the American audience they once courted so aggressively, has grown weary of the constant grievances. The victim brand is no longer a luxury product, it is a discarded relic. This collapse isn't just about public perception, it is about cold, hard mathematics. The cost of maintaining their lifestyle in Montecito is staggering. Between high-level private security, public relations teams, and the upkeep of a sprawling estate, their monthly expenses are believed to far exceed their actual income. Experts suggest they have a 5-year window of survival before their reserves are completely depleted. This is why the July 2026 trip to Birmingham is so much more than a charity appearance. It is a desperate crawl back to the only thing that gives them value, the royal aura. If this gamble fails, the Sussexes risk being erased from the map of global influencers entirely. The irony of their situation is profound. When they left the United Kingdom, they spoke of freedom and finding their voices. Yet, in the silence of their empty mansion, they are forced to confront a bitter truth. The very institution they tried to dismantle is the only reason the world ever listened to them. Without the crown, they aren't global leaders or elite entrepreneurs. They are simply celebrities whose star is rapidly fading. The late Queen Elizabeth II had a foresight that Harry and Meghan lacked. She told them from the beginning that there was no half-in, half-out arrangement. You are either in the family, serving the institution, or you are out in the world, standing on your own 2 feet. Now, they are finding out exactly what out feels like. It feels like being ignored by a father who only has 12 minutes to spare. It feels like being blocked by a brother who views you as a security threat. And it feels like being digitally purged from the official history of the monarchy. Harry is reportedly haunted by his grandmother's words. He realized too late that the royal magic cannot be bottled and sold in a jar of jam or a streaming documentary. It is earned through duty and loyalty, 2 things he discarded for a temporary spotlight. As we look toward the events of July 2026, the world is witnessing the twilight of the Sussex era. This is no longer a fight for a throne, it is a fight for relevance. If the palace remains a fortress and the public remains indifferent, Harry and Meghan will have to face the ultimate fear of every celebrity, becoming an irrelevance. The golden threads that once connected them to the most powerful monarchy on earth are being cut, one by one. The truth is finally being laid bare, and it is far more tragic than any memoir could ever describe. What do you think is the final outcome for the Sussexes? Is there any way back for Harry, or has the bridge been burned forever? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If you want to stay updated on the most exclusive royal news and deep dives into the lives of the Windsors, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the Royal Insider Network. Turn on your notifications so you never miss a breaking update from the heart of the palace. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next deep dive.
In the quiet early hours of a misty morning in July 2026, Prince William executed a maneuver of such profound symbolic weight that it has effectively rewritten the future of the royal legacy. While the world is often treated to high-production press releases and carefully staged media moments from the exiles in California, William chose a path of absolute dignified silence. He took his 11-year-old daughter, Princess Charlotte, on a private journey to Althorp, the ancestral home of the Spencer family, and the final secluded resting place of his mother, Princess Diana. There were no camera crews from streaming giants present. There were no public relations gurus whispering in the background. Instead, William reportedly rowed the small boat himself across the ornamental lake to the island where his mother lies. It was here, in the heart of the Spencer estate, that he performed an act of transition. He reached into his pocket and presented Charlotte with a cherished heirloom, a delicate bracelet that once belonged to the grandmother she never met. Insiders describe this as a moment of royal inheritance that transcends mere jewelry. As he fastened the gold links around his daughter's wrist, William is said to have spoken to her in a quiet, resolute tone. He told her that she is now the true keeper of this flame. He was heard explaining to the young princess that this legacy is not a product to be sold or a story to be traded for a headline, but a sacred duty to the people they serve. By gifting her this piece of Diana's history at her gravesite, William was making a definitive statement. The soul of the Princess of Wales now resides with those who remain loyal to the crown. This secret pilgrimage was more than just a father-daughter bonding moment. It was a sophisticated strategic strike against Prince Harry's upcoming visit to the United Kingdom. William is well aware that his brother's return in mid-July is not about family reconciliation, but about recharging a brand that has seen its popularity plummet by 65%. Harry needs proximity to the royal heirs to maintain his relevance in the eyes of American media executives. In response, William has launched what courtiers are calling the ultimate media embargo. He has issued a strict directive for the entire Wales family to be moved miles away from London during the exact duration of Harry's stay. There will be no accidental meetings at Windsor, no shared car rides, and absolutely no opportunities for a paparazzi lens to capture a single frame of Harry standing next to George or Charlotte. William's resolve is described as unbreakable. He is reportedly determined to deny his brother any royal oxygen. He has made it clear to his inner circle that the days of allowing his children to be used as background characters in a Sussex PR campaign are over. He is heard stating that if Harry wishes to be independent, he must learn to exist without the reflected light of the future king and queen. As the middle of July approaches, the Duke of Sussex is set to arrive in a country where his own brother has turned his family into a ghost. The bracelet on Charlotte's wrist and the silence at Althorp have sent a chilling message across the Atlantic. The legacy of Diana has been locked away in a vault of duty, and for the man who walked away, the keys have been permanently lost. One has to wonder as Harry steps off that plane into a cold and empty reception. What happens to a prince who finds himself a stranger in his own home? While the world is accustomed to the high-decibel media campaigns and carefully staged Netflix appearances of the Sussexes, Prince William chose a path of profound rhythmic silence. In the early morning mist of July 2026, far from the telephoto lenses of the tabloid press, a small wooden boat cut through the still waters of the oval lake at Althorp. At the oars was the future king, and sitting opposite him was 11-year-old Princess Charlotte. This was not a photo opportunity. It was a sacred initiation into the very heart of the Spencer legacy. By rowing his daughter to the private island where Princess Diana was laid to rest, William performed an act of deep historical symbolism. He was not just a father taking his child to visit her grandmother's grave. He was a leader ensuring that the spiritual inheritance of the House of Windsor remained firmly within the grasp of those who stay to serve. On that secluded island, away from any advisors or courtiers, William reportedly presented Charlotte with a cherished heirloom, a delicate bracelet that once graced the wrist of the late Princess of Wales. Those close to the family described the moment as a quiet passing of the torch. William was heard telling his daughter in a low, resolute voice that she is now a primary guardian of this memory. He reportedly explained that the blood of her grandmother does not belong to those who use it for profit across the ocean, but to those who carry the burden of the crown with dignity. As he fastened the gold links around Charlotte's wrist, he was effectively sealing a firewall around his mother's legacy, ensuring that the true narrative of Diana stays in London, not California. This quiet pilgrimage serves as a masterclass in strategic contrast. While Prince Harry often invokes his mother's name to justify commercial ventures, William is teaching the next generation that the only way to truly honor Diana is through silence and steadfast duty. This is the moment William declared, without speaking a single word to the press, that the spirit of Althorp flows through the children of the Wales family and no one else. But this trip was also the first move in a brutal surgical strike against the Duke of Sussex's upcoming visit. As Harry prepares to land in the United Kingdom in mid-July 2026, he is entering a landscape that has been professionally sterilized. William has reportedly issued a definitive media embargo against his brother. The Prince of Wales has given a direct order for his entire family to be moved miles away from Windsor and London for the entire duration of Harry's stay. There will be no chance encounters in the corridors of the palace. There will be no secret film sets for American streaming giants. Most importantly, William has ensured there is absolutely no possibility of a single photograph featuring Harry alongside George or Charlotte. He knows that such an image would be worth millions in content for the Sussex brand, providing them with the royal validation they so desperately need to stop their 65% popularity crash. William is reportedly finished with the reconciliation narrative. He is heard telling his inner circle that if Harry wants his independence, he will finally experience the true weight of absolute isolation. By removing his children from the board, William is denying his brother the royal oxygen required to sustain his media empire. The future king has made it clear the gates to the family and the legacy of the mother they both share are now officially locked from the inside. As Harry's plane approaches British airspace, he's about to find out that a prince without a family is a prince without a story. One can only imagine the silence that awaits him. The halls of the London High Court have just echoed with a verdict that sounds like a final crushing door slamming shut on the Duke of Sussex. In July 2026, the legal battle that Prince Harry waged against the Royal and F1P Executive Committee, known as RAVA, came to a humiliating conclusion. His desperate demand for taxpayer-funded high-level armed security was not just rejected, it was dismantled by the judicial system. The presiding judge delivered a line that has since reverberated through every royal corridor, stating with clinical precision that personal dissatisfaction does not mean the law is wrong. This legal defeat is more than a bruise to Harry's ego. It is a catastrophic financial blow. As his legal bills continue to skyrocket into the millions, the latest financial reports for the Archewell Foundation reveal a staggering $11 million deficit. The Sussex empire is bleeding cash, yet Harry remains locked in what insiders describe as a litigation addiction. He is frantically throwing the last of his resources into courtrooms, chasing a level of VIP protection that the British government has ruled he no longer deserves. Watching this from behind the ancient stone walls of Windsor Castle, Prince William reportedly feels nothing but a profound cold disdain. To the Prince of Wales, Harry's obsession with lawsuits is not a fight for safety, it is a pathological addiction to privilege. William is said to have remarked to his closest confidants that true security is never dictated by whining in a courtroom or demanding armored convoys. It is earned through responsibility, duty, and the quiet fulfillment of one's obligations to the state. The contrast between the two brothers' mindsets traces back to a singular, harrowing moment in history. William's inner circle suggests that his current stoicism was forged on the day he was just 15 years old. He remembers with haunting clarity the weight of the world's gaze as he was forced to walk behind his mother's coffin. He endured that trauma in silence, swallowing his tears under the scrutiny of millions, because he understood the gravity of his birthright. That day taught him that a prince does not complain, a prince endures. Consequently, William finds Harry's current behavior to be an unforgivable betrayal of their shared history. He reportedly views his brother's actions as the weaponization of paranoia. William is said to be deeply offended that Harry is using the tragic memory of their mother's death as a strategic tool, a convenient excuse to demand elite perks and to smear the very country and family that raised him. In William's eyes, Harry is not a victim of the system. He is a man who has abandoned the duty that provides protection only to cry when the protection is withdrawn. As Harry prepares to set foot in the United Kingdom later this month, he will find himself in a country where his brother has built a firewall of silence. William has made it clear that there will be no olive branches extended to a man who treats the British legal system like a personal grievance board. The Prince of Wales is moving forward with a singular focus on the future of the monarchy, leaving his brother to drown in a sea of legal documents and mounting debt. While the world watches the Duke of Sussex struggle to navigate a London that no longer recognizes his demands, a larger question begins to loom. How much longer can Harry maintain this crusade for special treatment before the money and the public's patience runs out entirely? The firewall at Windsor is holding firm, and for the man who chose California over the crown, the cold reality of his new status is about to become very, very real. In September 2025, Prince Harry made a grand return to London, positioning himself as the generous philanthropist the world once knew. He stood before the cameras and announced a personal donation of £1 million to the BBC Children in Need charity. For a moment, the media narrative shifted back in his favor. It looked like a genuine act of royal grace, but that illusion was short-lived. A series of leaked internal emails soon exposed a devastating truth. The money did not come from Harry's own pocket. Instead, it was drawn 100% from the Glenn Begg Fund, the private inheritance left to him by Princess Diana. This revelation hit the British public like a lightning bolt. It wasn't an act of personal sacrifice. It was a strategic withdrawal from a dead mother's estate to prop up a fading public image. Watching from the sidelines, Prince William maintained a stony silence, but his internal reaction was described as one of absolute freezing contempt. To William, this was the ultimate act of hypocrisy. He saw his brother borrowing a flower to offer to the Buddha, using Diana's legacy as a spare credit card to buy the media's affection. The contrast between the two brothers' methods has become impossible to ignore. While Harry was using his mother's name to mask his own financial struggles, William was quietly pouring his own heart and private resources into the Homewoods Project. This initiative, designed to provide long-term solutions for the homeless, was a direct continuation of Diana's most passionate work. Insiders say William's strategy is simple. Let actions speak louder than press releases. He's heard telling his advisors that true charity doesn't require a Hollywood-style rollout or a borrowed inheritance. It requires being present and doing the hard work. The resentment reached a boiling point following the financial audit of the 2025 Invictus Games. The numbers were staggering, and to many, unforgivable. A total of $63.2 million was spent on the event. When analysts broke down the costs, the optics were horrifying. The expenditure averaged out to approximately $118,000 per athlete. However, a significant portion of that budget was reportedly diverted to cover the Sussexes' royal-style logistics, including private jets and elite security. The most cutting detail emerged when reports confirmed that many of the wounded veterans, the very people the games were meant to serve, were forced to pay for their own flights and travel expenses. William is said to be deeply repulsed by this disparity. He reportedly views Harry's behavior as a betrayal of their mother's core values. In William's eyes, Diana's compassion was defined by putting others first, not by spending tens of millions of dollars on a personal PR tour, while veterans were left to foot their own bills. As of July 2026, William has reached a final verdict. He no longer considers Harry a legitimate representative of Princess Diana's kindness. The Prince of Wales is reportedly determined to ensure that the Spencer legacy remains tied to service, not to the commercialized victimhood that has become the Sussex brand. As Harry prepares to set foot on British soil once more this month, he is walking into a kingdom that is seen behind the curtain. The £1 million donation and the private jets have left a bitter taste in the mouths of the public. With William and Catherine now standing as the sole guardians of the Diana legacy, the question is no longer whether Harry can return to the fold, but whether there is anything left of his reputation to save. As the gates of Windsor remain firmly shut, one has to wonder what happens when the spare credit card of a mother's memory finally runs out of credit. As the Duke of Sussex's private jet crossed the Atlantic in July 2026, he believed he was flying toward a media resurrection. He reportedly anticipated a frenzy of flashbulbs and a narrative of the prodigal son returning to his roots. He couldn't have been more wrong. While Harry was in the air, Prince William, in full coordination with King Charles, was executing a digital and physical hard reset that would effectively delete the Sussexes from the monarchy's consciousness. The first strike was launched on the digital battlefield. Without fanfare or warning, the official royal family website, the global portal for the British monarchy, underwent a surgical transformation. In a move that sent shockwaves through international newsrooms, the names of Harry and Meghan were not just moved to the bottom of the page, they were stripped of every remaining His Royal Highness and Her Royal Highness styling. The message was clinical and absolute. The titles they had clung to as a commercial lifeline in California were now officially null and void. But as devastating as the digital execution was, the most visceral blow was being struck on the ground at Windsor. Prince William had reportedly issued a directive for a total hard reset of Frogmore Cottage. For years, this residence had served as the couple's last physical anchor in the United Kingdom, a symbol of their former royal life. Now William was ensuring that even the memory of their presence would be scrubbed away. Under the watchful eyes of estate managers, the palace began a total restoration of the property. Every trace of the extravagant California-style aesthetic that Meghan had introduced was being systematically dismantled. The custom carpets, the specialized paint finishes, and the high-end interior designs, part of a renovation that had famously cost the taxpayer $2,800,000 back in 2018, were being ripped out. The orders were to return the cottage to its original neutral state as it existed before the Sussexes ever stepped foot inside. Insiders describe William's mindset as one of cold strategic finality. He was heard telling a senior member of the royal household that you cannot truly turn a page until you have cleared the clutter of the previous chapter. His directive was reportedly clear. We are erasing the footprints, we are restoring the house, and in doing so, we are restoring the institution's peace. This wasn't just a renovation project, it was a psychological warfare tactic. William understands a brutal truth: you do not erase the footprints of a family member unless you have already declared them gone in your heart. By stripping Frogmore to its bare bones, William was signaling that Harry has no home to return to, not just physically but spiritually. As Harry landed in London, reportedly prepared to use his young children Archie and Lilibet as human shields to garner public sympathy and force a royal meeting, he found himself facing a fortified Windsor. The gates were not just closed, they were locked with a new set of keys. There would be no private dinners, no photos of the grandchildren with the king, and no access to the cottage that once held their memories. The Prince of Wales has successfully created a void where the Sussexes once stood. As the public watches the hard reset of Frogmore unfold, a chilling question begins to circulate through the elite circles of London. If the future king can erase the very physical presence of his own brother from the royal estate, what else is he willing to do to ensure the Sussex brand never breathes British air again? The hard reset has begun, and as Harry stands outside the gates, he's realizing that the brother he once knew has been replaced by a king who knows no sentiment. One has to wonder, when the footprints are gone, does the man even exist in the eyes of the crown anymore? The final judgment on the Sussex brand has been delivered not by a court of law, but by the relentless gaze of history and the forensic pen of biographer Tom Bower. In his latest work titled Betrayal, Bower provides a chilling autopsy of a media empire built on the shifting sands of grievance. His conclusion is as simple as it is devastating. Harry and Meghan have officially run out of narrative. The victimhood storyline that they carefully cultivated for 6 years has reached its expiration date. Bower predicts a harsh timeline for their survival in the United Kingdom and America, suggesting that with their current burn rate of cash and the cooling interest from global platforms, they have a maximum of 5 years before they fall into the deep abyss of cultural irrelevance. As this turbulent chapter of royal history reaches its conclusion, the victory of Prince William appears absolute. Through a strategy of steadfast stoicism and a refusal to engage in the mudslinging, William has successfully protected the dignity of the throne. By anchoring Princess Diana's legacy in the grace and duty of Princess Charlotte, he has ensured that the Spencer name is associated with service rather than scandal. William did not need a multi-million-dollar streaming deal to tell his story. He simply stood his ground, and in doing so, he won the war of attrition. Insiders close to this Prince of Wales describe a man who has finally found peace with the difficult decisions he has made. William was reportedly heard telling a longtime family confidant that the storm has finally passed because they refused to give it any more wind. He is said to have remarked that the crown is not a toy and the family is not a commodity for sale. He has chosen to look forward, focusing on the future of his children and the stability of the monarchy, effectively deleting the drama of the past 6 years from his daily life. In stark contrast, the scene in California is one of profound isolation. Imagine the Duke of Sussex sitting in the vast, quiet halls of his 18-bathroom mansion in Montecito, watching the news from London. The very estate he once viewed as a symbol of his freedom now feels like a hollow monument to everything he has lost. He is reportedly confronting a late and painful realization: The rule established by the late Queen Elizabeth II was never a suggestion. She had told him clearly that he was either in or out, and Harry is now discovering the brutal reality of being out. Harry believed he was running toward independence, but by allowing his brother William to successfully withdraw the royal lifeblood that fueled his brand, he has become a prince without a country and a celebrity without a cause. He is the spare who is no longer required in exile, watching the sunset of his own influence while the world moves on without him. The footprints he tried to leave in the sand have been washed away by the tide of royal tradition, and the brother he once mocked is now the architect of his total exclusion. This is the final sunset for the exiles of Montecito. The gates of Windsor are locked, the archives are sealed, and the narrative has been reclaimed by the future king. Harry is left with a title that has no power and a story that no one wants to hear. Thank you for being part of this journey on the Royal Insider Network. If you appreciate our in-depth analysis of the House of Windsor, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support is what allows us to bring you the truth behind the palace walls. Do you believe Prince William's victory is final, or could there be another twist in this royal saga? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for our next exclusive report.
The British Crown's silence is not an act of tolerance, it is a tightening legal noose around the necks of the delusional pair in California. As we enter July 2026, the mystery of the Sussex children has shifted from mere tabloid gossip into a full-blown constitutional crisis that threatens the very foundation of the monarchy. The question on every citizen's mind is simple yet devastating. If Archie and Lilibet truly carry the prestigious royal bloodline in a legally recognized manner, why would Meghan Markle endure 6 years of public doubt rather than produce a single, verifiable birth certificate? Before we dive into the dark truth, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the Royal Insider Network. We bring you the facts the mainstream media is too afraid to touch. Leave a comment below. Do you believe the Sussex children should remain in the line of succession? To understand the weight of this secrecy, we must look back to the year 1688. This was the era of the infamous warming pan scandal under King James II. Back then, the suspicion was so high that over 70 witnesses, including high ministers and nobles, were forced to crowd into the royal birthing chamber. They were there for one reason: to ensure the Queen did not smuggle a commoner's baby into the palace inside a bed. Warming pan to steal the throne. This painful historical memory created a rigid protocol that lasted for nearly 3 centuries. The Home Secretary was legally required to be present at every royal birth to guarantee the child was indeed of the body of the mother. This 100% strict security protocol remained until 1948, when King George VI abolished it to grant the family modern medical privacy. However, Meghan Markle reportedly viewed this historical leniency not as a gift, but as a loophole. She entered the palace with a Hollywood feminist mindset, believing she could dismantle a 1,000-year-old institution with California logic. Internal sources reveal that during the frantic weeks leading up to Archie's birth, Meghan's defiance reached a boiling point. She reportedly told a senior courtier, "This is my body and my medical privacy. The palace does not own my children, and I will not be treated like a specimen in a museum." When the palace reminded her of the importance of transparency for the line of succession, she allegedly snapped at Harry, saying, "They just want to control us. If we give them this, they will never let us go." Harry, caught in the middle, has spent the last several years acting as a silent accomplice. Those close to him describe a man haunted by the trauma of his own childhood, yet paralyzed by his wife's ambition. In a private moment with a former friend, Harry reportedly whispered, "I just want them to be safe and private. But I know the secrecy is starting to look like a confession. The more we hide, the more people think we have something to hide." Meghan's arrogance led her to believe that her modern narrative could override ancient laws. She thought she could rewrite the rules of a dynasty, but as the legal pressure mounts in 2026, the Sussexes are realizing that the Crown's long memory is far more powerful than a Hollywood PR machine. The shadows of 1688 are returning to haunt them. And the truth about those birth certificates is about to be dragged into the light. Stay tuned to the Royal Insider Network as we uncover the final verdict. The Act of Settlement 1701 is not just an old piece of parchment stored in a dusty archive. It is the absolute ironclad lock on the British throne. For over 3 centuries, this law has dictated exactly who can and cannot wear the crown. It is brutally specific. To be in the line of succession, a child must be born of the body. This is a biological and legal requirement that means a child must be born directly to a mother who is in a legally recognized marriage at the time of birth. Currently, Archie sits at 6th in line to the throne, and Lilibet is 7th. But in the eyes of constitutional experts, these positions are written in pencil, not ink, and the eraser is held by the British Parliament. The hypocrisy of the Sussex brand has reached a boiling point as we move through 2026. Meghan Markle famously sat on a global stage and labelled the royal family as an institution plagued by unconscious bias and racism. Yet, behind the scenes, she has fought a relentless war to ensure her children are called Prince and Princess. The reason is purely financial. In the competitive American market, a royal title is estimated to increase a brand's commercial value by over 400%. Without the titles, they are just another wealthy couple in Montecito. With them, they are a global franchise. Meghan wants the prestige of a 1,000-year-old dynasty while simultaneously refusing to follow the basic constitutional rules that govern it. She seems to have forgotten a crucial detail. The crown may grant a title, but the law can take it away. While the king might be a grandfather who wants to avoid conflict, Parliament is a political machine that answers to the British taxpayer. The demand for transparency regarding the births of Archie and Lilibet is no longer a fringe theory. It is a matter of national security and constitutional integrity. Meghan's strategy is a masterclass in cold, calculated media manipulation. Those close to her California circle suggest she doesn't actually fear the rumors regarding her children's birth details. In fact, she reportedly thrives on the ambiguity. During a high-level strategy meeting with her brand consultants in late 2025, she was allegedly heard saying, "The mystery is our most valuable asset. If we give them the documents, the conversation ends. As long as they are guessing, they are watching. And as long as they are watching, we are relevant." For Meghan, the mystery is the only product she has left to sell now that the massive contracts with Netflix and Spotify have hit a dead end. She is playing a high-stakes game of curiosity bait, using her own children as the hook. She knows that in the digital age, uncertainty generates clicks, and clicks generate the revenue needed to sustain a $14 million lifestyle. She is a media parasite, feeding off a curiosity gap she purposefully created. However, the Act of Settlement 1701 is a trap she cannot charm her way out of. The legal definition of born of the body is a biological reality that cannot be bypassed by a PR statement or a glossy magazine cover. If the evidence of a royal birth as defined by British law is not provided, the Sussexes are not just looking at a PR disaster, they are looking at a total legal expulsion. The very law that protects the king's right to rule is the same law that could systematically erase the Sussexes from the history of the monarchy. The trap is set, the legal clock is ticking, and the ambiguity that once fed their bank account is about to become their greatest liability. The question isn't if the truth will come out, but how much of the monarchy will be damaged when the hammer finally falls. The shadows surrounding the births of the Sussex children didn't start in California. They began in the very heart of London, in a series of medical glitches that left the British public questioning everything they were being told. On the morning of May 6, 2019, the world was waiting for news from the Portland hospital. At 2 in the afternoon, Buckingham Palace released a statement saying the Duchess of Sussex had gone into labour. But behind the scenes, the truth was already hours old. Archie had actually been born at 5:26 that morning. And by the time the public was told Meghan was just beginning her delivery, The couple had reportedly already slipped out of the hospital and returned home. This wasn't just a timing error, it was a breach of a centuries-old protocol. For the first time in modern royal history, the formal announcement posted on the gates of the palace was missing the crucial signatures of the royal medical team. There were no names of the Queen's surgeons or the official doctors who had supposedly witnessed the birth. It was a blank space where authority should have been an unprecedented move that sent shockwaves through the constitutional establishment. Fast forward to June 4, 2021. The scene shifts to Santa Barbara, California, where Lilibet was born. This time, the secrecy was elevated to a total blackout. Under the shield of strict United States privacy laws, every single detail of the medical procedure was locked away behind a 100% non-disclosure wall. Even the palace was reportedly kept in the dark for hours after the birth had occurred. The savage irony here is impossible to ignore. This is a couple that markets themselves as the ultimate champions of transparency and truth. They were willing to sell every intimate detail of their private lives, from their mental health struggles and physical altercations to their most private bedroom moments, for a $100 million Netflix deal and a tell-all memoir. Harry even wrote about his most personal physical vulnerabilities in his book, Spare. Yet, when it comes to the simple, administrative fact of which doctor delivered a child who sits in the line of succession for a 1,000-year-old throne, they treat the information like a state secret. To the British public, this selective privacy feels like a deliberate slap in the face. Behind the scenes in Montecito, Meghan's internal logic is driven by a deep-seated sense of insecurity. She understands perfectly well that the moment a standard, verifiable medical record is released, her cat-and-mouse game with the media ends. She needs the ambiguity. As long as there is a cloud of mystery, she can maintain her narrative as a hunted victim who must hide her children from a predatory world. This manufactured atmosphere of danger isn't just for drama, it is a tactical necessity. By creating an aura of extreme risk, she justifies her ongoing demands for a multi-million-dollar security detail funded by the sovereign grant. In her mind, if the public knows too much, the threat disappears. And with it, the justification for the royal-funded protection she so desperately craves. But as 2026 unfolds, the silence of those hospitals is becoming deafening. The ghosts of Portland and Santa Barbara are starting to speak, and the inconsistencies are piling up. The couple thought they could hide behind the word privacy, but they are discovering that you cannot be a private citizen while holding a public position in the line of succession. The gap between their public honesty and their private secrecy is widening, and the world is starting to ask, what exactly is so dangerous about a birth certificate? The mystery is no longer a shield, it's a target. The mask of transparency hasn't just slipped, it has shattered into 20 million pieces. As we move through the middle of 2026, the staggering hypocrisy of the Sussex brand is being laid bare for the entire world to see. On one side of the scale, we have the memoir, Spare, a book where Prince Harry sold the most intimate secrets of his father and brother for a $20 million royalty check. He was more than happy to detail private arguments and personal vulnerabilities to the highest bidder. But on the other side of the scale, when legitimate questions are asked about the birth timelines of Archie and Lilibet, the couple immediately retreats behind an impenetrable wall of silence. You cannot be a self-proclaimed whistleblower on Monday and a secret keeper on Tuesday. This savage contradiction has finally caught the attention of those who have spent their lives protecting the integrity of the crown. Lady Colin Campbell and the esteemed historian Hugo Vickers, a man who has dedicated over 40 years of his career to royal accuracy, have begun to pose lethal questions that the Montecito PR team cannot answer. When a historian of Vickers' stature, someone who is known for his cautious and measured approach, reportedly uses the word fraudulence in private discussions regarding the Sussex narrative, the balloon of Meghan's carefully crafted illusion is officially punctured. One insider describes a moment during a briefing where a researcher pointed out the discrepancies in the official birth announcements. Vickers allegedly remarked with cold precision, "In the history of this monarchy, truth is the only currency that lasts." When you replace truth with a Hollywood script, you aren't just lying to the public, you are committing a fraud against the Constitution. The fallout from this transparency collapse is now vibrating through the walls of the Montecito mansion, creating a pressure level of 200% on Harry and Meghan's marriage. The internal trust is fraying, while Meghan reportedly remains defiant, insisting that privacy is a human right. Harry is beginning to wake up to a terrifying reality. Sources close to the couple suggest that the Duke is finally realizing that his wife's obsession with secrecy has unintended, permanent consequences. In a heated exchange reportedly overheard by household staff in early 2026, Harry was said to have confronted Meghan about the children's status in the United Kingdom. "They are becoming ghosts in my own country," Harry allegedly shouted. "If we don't fix the record, they won't have a history. They'll just be names on a website with no proof of who they are." Meghan's reported response was a chilling reminder of her priorities. "The proof is whatever we say it is. We don't owe them our medical files." But Harry knows the truth. He knows that in the eyes of the British people and the law, "because I said so" is not a legal document. By refusing to follow the ancient protocols of the born of the body requirement, they are effectively turning their own children into legal ghosts, individuals with royal titles but no constitutional foundation to stand on. As the public curiosity turns into a demand for accountability, the Sussexes are finding themselves trapped in a prison of their own making. They sold their family's privacy for millions, and now that the world wants to see their own truth, they have nothing to show but empty statements and legal threats. The paradox is becoming unsustainable. How much longer can they hide the facts while claiming to be the world's most honest couple? The answer is buried in the medical archives of 19 and 21, and the clock is ticking toward a revelation that could change everything. As the calendar turns to mid-2026, Archie is now 7 years old, and Lilibet is 5. They are growing up in what can only be described as a mansion desert in Montecito. A sprawling $14 million estate that serves as both a playground and a gilded cage. While their royal cousins, George, Charlotte, and Louis, are bathed in the warmth of a massive extended family and participate in grand traditions with an 80 to 90% public approval rating, the Sussex children remain digital ghosts. They are known to the world only through rare, grainy, black and white photos taken from behind. Their faces perpetually shielded, as if they were witnesses in a high-profile criminal trial. But let's be honest about what is really happening behind those high gates. To the critical observer, it appears that Meghan is not protecting her children's privacy. She is managing her most valuable media assets. There is a savage calculation at play here. Much like the limited edition jars of jam sitting in her warehouse, the faces of Archie and Lilibet are being stockpiled for a day when their market value is at its absolute peak. In the ruthless world of Hollywood branding, a clear, high-definition photo of the two Sussex children sitting on the lap of their grandfather, King Charles III, is the ultimate money shot. It is a multi-million-dollar bargaining chip that could be used to secure their next major production deal. A former associate of the couple once whispered about a private conversation during a strategy session in late 2025. Meghan allegedly looked at a mock-up for a potential documentary and said, "We can't show them yet. If we give the world a clear look now, we lose our leverage for the big reveal. We need that one shot with the king to make it official." It is a narrative of commercial hoarding rather than maternal protection. By keeping them hidden, she creates an artificial scarcity, turning her own flesh and blood into a commodity to be traded when the bank account starts to run low. However, beneath the surface of this marketing plan lies a growing, toxic reality. There is a quiet, simmering fear starting to take hold in the Montecito household, the fear of a mother who realizes that her own brand is becoming a poison to her children's future. The name Markle has become synonymous with division, litigation, and broken bridges. As Archie and Lilibet grow older, They will inevitably do what every child in the digital age does. They will Google themselves. And what will they find? They won't find stories of their grand achievements or their family's service. Instead, they will be met with millions of search results from 2019 to 2026, all asking the same devastating question: do they actually exist? Or were they truly born of the body? They will see an entire world debating the legitimacy of their very arrival into this world. Imagine the psychological weight on a 7-year-old boy or a 5-year-old girl, realizing that their parents' obsession with secrecy has led the entire world to treat their birth as a conspiracy theory. Meghan reportedly spent a restless night in early 2026, pacing the halls after reading a particularly biting editorial. She allegedly confided in a staff member, "They're turning my kids into a punchline. Everything I did to protect them is making them look like a lie." The isolation is no longer just physical, it is existential. By keeping them away from the king, away from their cousins, and away from the truth, the Sussexes are effectively toxicifying the very children they claim to be saving. As the palace continues its silence and the public's curiosity turns into a cold, hard skepticism, the media assets in Montecito are becoming a burden that no amount of PR can fix. The question is no longer when we will see them, but what kind of damage will already be done by the time the cameras finally start rolling. The big reveal might just be the moment the world realizes the cost of a brand built on secrets. Buckingham Palace has perfected a weapon far more dangerous than a public denial. It is called the Grand Freeze Out. In the high-stakes chess game of 2026, the monarchy has stopped arguing and started erasing. They have realized that the Sussexes feed on conflict, but they starve in silence. The ultimate verdict has not come from a judge or a headline. It has come through a series of absolute icy closures. The loss of Frogmore Cottage was just the beginning. By July 2026, with a 0% allocation for their security from the British taxpayer, the message from the Crown is final. You are no longer part of the fold. As the Sussexes arrive in London for the Invictus anniversary, the most devastating blow is delivered not with a shout, but with a closed door. King Charles III has reportedly made a decision that marks the end of an era. According to palace insiders, when Harry requested a formal sit-down for his wife with the king, the response was a cold, administrative no. A senior courtier reportedly overheard the king telling his closest advisors, "The crown cannot and will not be used as a background for a commercial raid. My son is welcome as a family member, but the Duchess is no longer a factor in the state's business." This refusal is a tactical masterstroke. It denies Meghan the one thing she needs to sustain her brand, the royal proximity. Without a photo, without a meeting, and without a shared space with the sovereign, the Sussex mystery has no fuel. But the real hammer is waiting in the halls of Parliament. The title deprivation bill is no longer just a threat. It is a looming reality that could reset the history books. If this bill passes, the legal standing of Archie and Lilibet undergoes a catastrophic shift. Their positions in the line of succession, currently 6 and 7, would not just drop, they would be erased to exactly 0%. The Prince and Princess titles that Meghan has worked so hard to market would vanish overnight. In the eyes of the British Constitution, they would become private citizens with no more claim to the throne than any other person on the street. For Meghan, this is the ultimate nightmare. She has spent years operating like the director of a global Oscar-winning drama, believing she could rewrite the rules of a 1,000-year-old institution. But as the summer of 2026 fades, she is realizing that she is merely a side actress who has been written out of the main script. She is trapped in a metaphorical cement room of her own making, shouting into a void while the British monarchy continues to function with perfect, quiet precision. The institution has proven it doesn't need her secrets, or her manufactured ambiguity to maintain its majesty. The Sussexes came to London looking for a coronation of their own influence, but they found only a cold, hard reality. The Grand Freeze Out is complete. The crown has moved on, leaving the couple in Montecito to wonder if the mystery they created was worth the exile they earned. The truth is finally coming to the surface, and the crown has never looked more immovable. What do you think? Has the king finally done what was necessary to protect the future of the monarchy? Should Parliament move forward with the total removal of titles? We want to hear your voice, so drop a comment below. We read every single one. If you value the truth and want to stay updated on the final fall of the Sussex Empire, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the Royal Insider Network. Your support ensures that the history of the crown is told with the respect and accuracy it deserves. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned to the Royal Insider Network for our next deep dive into the secrets of the palace.
The glittering illusion of a Sussex empire in America has finally shattered into a million pieces. The golden gates of Hollywood have officially slammed shut, leaving the Duke and Duchess of Sussex standing in the cold, clutching nothing but a jar of strawberry jam and the fading scent of luxury candles. This is no longer a temporary setback. It is a total collapse of a brand that once promised to conquer the world. At 9 o'clock in this morning, on March the 10th, 2026, the literary world was rocked by the release of Tom Bower's latest bombshell biography titled Betrayal. This book did not just criticize the couple, it acted as a forensic autopsy of their failed American dream. Within its pages, Bower exposes a brutal reality. The California elite, the very people Meghan and Harry sacrificed everything to join, have officially moved on. A-list stars who once lined up to be seen with them are now reportedly screening their calls, fearing that being associated with the Sussex brand will contaminate their own professional reputations. Before we dive deeper into the fallout of this publication, take a quick second to hit that like button and subscribe to the Royal Insider Network. Your support helps us bring you the most in-depth analysis of the stories that matter. Done. Let us continue. The numbers tell a story of absolute rejection. By the middle of March 2026, industry analysts confirmed a staggering 65% drop in the Sussexes' Q-score. This metric, which measures a celebrity's popularity and appeal to the public, has hit a historic low. They are no longer viewed as inspirational figures. Instead, they have become the favorite punchline for late-night talk show hosts across the United States. Behind the closed doors of their Montecito mansion, the atmosphere is described as suffocating. Meghan is reportedly spiraling into what insiders call strategic panic. She's haunted by a profound fear of being forgotten, a desperation to remain relevant in a town that thrives on the next big thing. She was heard crying out to her advisors, saying that this was not how the script was supposed to end. She believed she would be the queen of the entertainment world, yet she finds herself relegated to the sidelines. Meanwhile, Harry is facing a different kind of torment. He sits in the vast silence of their 18-bathroom estate, a prince without a country and a man without a mission. He is reportedly heard whispering to his inner circle, questioning if the price of his freedom was simply too high. He looks at the bridges he burned in London and realizes there is no path back, leaving him trapped between a wounded pride and a growing silent regret. Can a lifestyle brand and a few media appearances save two people standing on the edge of financial and social bankruptcy? Tell us what you think in the comments below. Is there any way back for Harry and Meghan, or is the Sussex brand gone for good? We want to hear your thoughts. Stick with the Royal Insider Network as we continue to track this developing story. The honeymoon period of the Sussexes' American dream has been replaced by a brutal, cold morning of financial reckoning. Behind the tall hedges of their Montecito estate, the air is no longer filled with the scent of organic lavender, but with the suffocating pressure of mounting debt and dwindling opportunities. The reality is simple and devastating. The world has stopped buying what the Duke and Duchess are selling. The collapse began when the digital giant Spotify terminated their multi-million-dollar contract with high-ranking executives, publicly labeling them as grifters. This was not just a PR disaster. It was the first domino to fall in a catastrophic financial chain reaction. Now their last remaining lifeline, Netflix, is reportedly tightening the purse strings. The streaming giant is no longer handing out blank checks for vague concepts. They want results that the couple simply cannot deliver. Even Meghan's latest venture, the lifestyle brand titled As Ever, has arrived stillborn. Despite the initial hype, engagement levels have plummeted to embarrassing lows, proving that royal drama alone is no longer a viable business model. To understand the scale of this crisis, One must look at the sheer weight of the numbers. The couple is currently grappling with a mortgage of $14 million on their California home, a massive financial burden that demands constant high-level income. Beyond the walls of their mansion, the costs of maintaining their illusion of royalty are astronomical. It is estimated that they must spend at least $3 million every single year just to cover the costs of a private security detail and the staff required to manage their complex public image. But perhaps the most telling sign of their decline is found in the financial records of the Archewell Foundation. The latest reports show a staggering deficit of $11 million in donations. The billionaire donors and high-net-worth philanthropists of America have stopped writing checks. They see a brand in freefall, and in the world of high finance, nobody wants to invest in a sinking ship. This financial suffocation has ignited a firestorm within their marriage. What was once a united front against the world is now a fragile alliance fractured by bitterness. Insiders describe shouting matches that echo through the halls of their 18 bathrooms. Harry is reportedly filled with a growing sense of resentment, looking back at the safety and tradition of the palace that he walked away from. He was heard during one heated exchange shouting that he was never prepared for this, that he was led to believe they would be protected and prosperous. Meghan, however, reportedly views his hesitation with nothing but contempt. She has been described as snapping back at him, telling him that without her vision he would be nothing more than a forgotten shadow in London. She blames his lack of business intuition for their current predicament, while he blames her ambition for stripping him of his birthright. They are two people trapped in a gilded cage of their own making, watching as the gold leaf begins to peel away. The question that now hangs over the Montecito mansion is no longer about their next big project, but about basic survival. As the bank accounts drain and the Hollywood invitations dry up, the walls are closing in. Every failed launch and every negative headline brings them closer to a reality they never thought they would have to face. One has to wonder, when the money finally runs out, what will remain of the royal couple who thought they could outrun the crown. The silence coming from London is louder than any headline the Sussexes could ever generate. For months, Prince Harry has reportedly attempted to bridge the chasm between his life in California and the ancient stone walls of Buckingham Palace. But the man who once had a direct line to the heart of the monarchy now finds himself hitting a wall of absolute calculated indifference. King Charles III is not fighting this war with tabloid leaks or emotional outbursts. He is fighting it with the cold, immovable power of the British state. To understand the current dynamic, one must stop viewing Charles as merely a grieving father and start seeing him as the chief executive officer of a 1,000-year-old corporation. The king has shifted into a mode of institutional preservation. Insiders suggest that in his view, the Sussexes are no longer family members who have wandered astray, but rather media liabilities that must be surgically removed to protect the long-term health of the crown. The first major blow came through the legal channels of the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, commonly known as RAVA. In a move that stripped away the last vestiges of Harry's royal status, the committee finalized the decision to remove his right to automatic taxpayer-funded armed protection while on British soil. The message from the king's government was unmistakable: if you wish to walk the streets of your homeland, you will do so as a private citizen. If you want security, you must pay for it out of your own dwindling pockets. For a man who was raised as a high-ranking soldier and a prince of the realm, this was more than a logistical hurdle. It was a profound public demotion. But the king was not finished. The final physical thread connecting Harry to his former life was severed with the absolute enforcement of the Frogmore Cottage eviction. This historic property, once a gift from the late Queen, has been cleared of every last Sussex possession. For the first time in his life, Prince Harry is essentially homeless in the United Kingdom. He no longer has a key to a front door within the royal gates. When he travels to London now, he must stay in hotels or seek permission to stay on royal estates, permission that is increasingly difficult to obtain. The emotional toll of this surgical separation is heavy on both sides, though expressed in vastly different ways. King Charles is said to have adopted a posture of regal stoicism. Those close to him describe a man who has made peace with his decision. He has chosen the survival of the monarchy over his own fatherly instincts. His silence is his most powerful weapon. By refusing to engage, he denies Harry and Meghan the very oxygen they need to fuel their media narratives. He is showing the world that the king does not need his second son, even if the son desperately needs the king. For Harry, The realization is beginning to sink in with a bitter metallic taste. He's experiencing the crushing weight of being a first-class citizen turned outsider in the very place he was born to serve. He reportedly feels abandoned, cast out into the wilderness of a world that views him with more curiosity than respect. The pride he felt when he left has been replaced by the realization that once the gates of the palace are locked from the inside, they are incredibly difficult to reopen. As the distance between Montecito and London grows into an unbridgeable ocean, a haunting question remains. If the king has truly closed the book on the Sussexes, what happens to a prince who has nowhere left to call home? The royal protection is gone, the residence is gone, and the father's voice has fallen silent. In this high-stakes game of constitutional chess, the king has made his move, and it might just be checkmate. Desperation is a powerful motivator, and by the summer of 2026, it has pushed the Sussexes to their most controversial move yet. With their financial foundations crumbling and their social standing in Hollywood reaching a freezing point, a new high-stakes plan has emerged from the Montecito mansion. It is a strategy designed to force the hands of both the British public and the royal family. In July 2026, after nearly 4 years of swearing she would never set foot on British soil again, Meghan is reportedly preparing for a calculated return to the United Kingdom. This is not a mission of reconciliation or a quiet family visit. Insiders are calling it the Trojan horse strategy. The couple knows that their brand requires royal oxygen to survive. Without the association with the 1,000-year-old institution, they are just another pair of struggling content creators. To provide a legitimate cover for this visit, they are utilizing the one remaining pillar of their public service, the Invictus Games. With the 2027 Games scheduled to take place in Birmingham, Harry and Meghan are using the preparatory meetings in July 2026 as a shield of legitimacy. But the most cynical aspect of this return involves two innocent figures who have been kept far from the British public eye, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. The strategy is as sophisticated as it is ruthless. By bringing the children to the United Kingdom, Meghan is deploying what some analysts describe as a human shield against public hostility. She is acutely aware that while the British public might have strong feelings about her and Harry, they would never dream of booing or heckling in the presence of two small children. Meghan's mindset during these planning sessions is described as cold and hyper-focused. She's no longer dreaming of being a global icon through talent alone. She's playing a game of PR survival. She knows that a single photograph of the children at a royal-adjacent event, or even just arriving at a private airport, is worth more than 1,000 lifestyle blog posts. In her view, the children are the ultimate bargaining chips, the only keys left that might force King Charles to grant them the audience and the security they so desperately crave. She is reportedly betting everything on the idea that the king cannot turn away his grandchildren, even if he has closed his heart to his son. Watching this play out from the sidelines is a deeply conflicted Prince Harry. Those close to him describe a man vibrating with anxiety and immense tension. He is witnessing his wife transform their private family life into a blunt instrument for brand recovery. He reportedly feels a sense of profound unease as he watches his children being positioned as the centerpiece of a media campaign designed to save a failing jam business and a lifestyle brand. He's trapped in a cycle of his own making, seeing his family being used as a PR tool to regain the very status he once claimed to despise. The atmosphere leading up to July 2026 is thick with anticipation and dread. Will the royal family see through the Trojan horse and maintain their distance, or will the presence of the two young royals finally crack the palace's icy resolve? The Sussexes are betting their entire future on this one trip, hoping that the sight of the next generation will erase years of betrayal. But as they prepare to cross the Atlantic, one question looms over the entire operation. What happens if the gates of the kingdom remain firmly shut, even to the children? The stage is set for a confrontation that could either resurrect the Sussex brand or provide its final public burial. The dream of a heartwarming family reunion at Windsor has been systematically dismantled by the very people Prince Harry once called his closest allies. As the Duke and Duchess of Sussex finalize their plans for the July 2026 return, they are not just facing a silent king, they are heading straight toward a reinforced firewall. This is the era of the Prince and Princess of Wales, a couple who have moved far beyond the initial pain of betrayal and into a phase of total strategic exclusion. Within the walls of Kensington Palace, the stance regarding the visitors from California is absolute. There is 0% chance of forgiveness. For William and Catherine, the wound is no longer raw. It is scarred over into a hard, impenetrable surface. They have analyzed the fallout from the memoir Spare and the various Netflix docuseries and reached a final conclusion. To them, Harry is no longer just a wayward brother. He is a high-level security threat to the integrity of the British monarchy. The strategy for handling the July visit is being described by insiders as a total blackout. While Harry may hope for a private moment to explain himself, or perhaps a chance for his children to finally bond with George Charlotte and Louis the Prince of Wales, has reportedly issued a definitive no. There will be no joint appearances, no private dinners, and absolutely no opportunities for the Sussex brand to capture a single frame of footage involving the future king and queen. To ensure this, a strict no-filming mandate has been established across every royal estate. Any film crews or photographers associated with the Sussexes' commercial ventures will be barred from entry. This move effectively cuts the oxygen to their business model. Without the visual proof of royal proximity, their content loses its primary value to American streaming giants. The palace is making it clear the Sussexes can visit the country, but they will not be allowed to use the royal family as a backdrop for their next commercial pitch. The emotional weight of this reality is perhaps most visible in the changing demeanor of Prince William. Those who see him daily describe a man who has undergone a profound transformation. He no longer speaks of Harry with anger, but with a chilling professional detachment. During a high-level briefing regarding the logistics of the July 2026 visit, William was reportedly heard stating that the institution comes first, and the institution has no room for those who seek to sell its secrets. He looks at his younger brother not with the eyes of a sibling who once stood shoulder to shoulder with him at their mother's funeral, but with the cold gaze of a leader identifying a liability. For Harry, the realization of this firewall is expected to be a moment of crushing public and private humiliation. To travel across the ocean, children in tow, only to be treated like a distant, unwanted acquaintance, is a scenario he never truly envisioned. He's beginning to understand that the bridge he burned wasn't just a structure of tradition, but a lifeline of genuine brotherhood. He is now an outsider, looking in, watching his brother and sister-in-law lead a life that he was once an integral part of. The tension hanging over the upcoming July visit is palpable as the world waits to see how the Sussexes will react when they realize the palace gates are not just closed, but fortified. The message from the Waleses is silent, but deafening: you chose your path, and that path no longer leads to our door. As the clock ticks down to their arrival, the ultimate question remains: how will Harry and Meghan handle being treated as strangers in the very heart of the kingdom they once called home? The verdict has been delivered, and it is more devastating than any legal judgment. Tom Bower, the man who meticulously documented the crumbling of the Sussex illusion, has issued a final chilling conclusion to this saga. His analysis suggests that Harry and Meghan have reached the most dangerous point for any public figure. They have officially run out of narrative. In the hyper-competitive attention economy of Hollywood, once you stop being interesting, you stop being profitable. For 6 years, the couple leaned heavily on a single story: their alleged victimhood at the hands of the British monarchy. But by July 2026, the world has moved on. The public's appetite for their grievances has completely evaporated. They find themselves in a desperate position, forced to crawl back to the very institution they once publicly disparaged, hoping to catch even a glimmer of royal magic to stay afloat. They are no longer innovators or leaders. They are survivors trying to prevent a total social and financial blackout. The numbers supporting this decline are inescapable. Bower has put forward a brutal 5-year deadline for the couple. He predicts that if the Trojan Horse mission in July 2026 fails to secure a formal reconciliation or a renewed royal association, the Sussexes will be completely erased from the global influencer map within 5 years. With their current rate of spending on security staff and a high-end lifestyle, their remaining resources are being consumed at an unsustainable pace. Without a massive new infusion of royal-adjacent content, the math simply does not work. The irony of their situation is a bitter pill to swallow. They fled the United Kingdom in 2020 in search of what they called freedom and a new life. Yet as the sun sets on their American ambitions, they have discovered a humiliating truth. The crown they tried to deconstruct was the only thing that gave them value in the eyes of the world. Without the titles, the proximity to the king, and the historic weight of the monarchy, they are just another celebrity couple in an overcrowded California market. Behind the scenes, the realization has finally set in. Harry is reportedly haunted by the silence of his former life. He was once a prince of the blood, a man with a clear purpose and a protected future. Now, he is heard reflecting on his choices with a profound sense of irony, realizing that the independence he sought has left him more dependent than ever, not on his family, but on a fickle public that has grown bored of his story. Meghan, too, is facing the reality that her strategic panic cannot fix a broken brand. The Queen of Hollywood title she craved has been replaced by a label she fears most: irrelevant. This is the twilight of the rebels. The gates of the palace are locked, the bank accounts are draining, and the world is looking elsewhere. They are two people who tried to play a game of thrones against a 1,000-year-old institution, only to find themselves outside in the cold. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the collapse of the Sussex Empire. This has been a production of the Royal Insider Network. If you found this analysis compelling, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive insights into the world of the House of Windsor. We want to hear from you. Do you think there is any hope for a Sussex comeback? Or is this the final chapter? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every one of them. Thank you for